Welcome back to the live desk. I'm Katie Bird. Today I am joined by Dr. Matt Harris. He is the political science professor at Park University here in the Metro. Dr. Harris, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, there's been big news out of the state of Texas this weekend. Over 50 Texas lawmakers left their state as Democrats are fighting against the redrawing of congressional lines. And President Trump is actually backing the Republicans, and it's raising a lot of questions for locals here in the Metro. They're wondering if this would happen in Missouri. So, I want to first start just by getting your overall reaction to this.
Yeah, so it seems like there's a push from the White House asking a lot of these states in which Republicans control the redistricting process to redraw congressional lines to try to make more seats for Republicans and fewer seats for Democrats. Texas seems like it's the first place where we're seeing this play out. And as you said, Democrats actually left the state. So the legislature didn't have a quorum in order to do anything. So we'll see how that plays out. The governor of Texas has been making some threats and saying he's going to replace those members. I don't. It's questionable if he has the authority to do that, but that's sort of the first domino to fall. But we could see redistricting in places like Ohio, and we could also see it in a place like Missouri. And if you listen to what some of the state legislators have said in Missouri, it seems like they think that it's more likely, or it's becoming more likely, that there will be a special session for that to happen in order for redistricting to take place in a timely manner with the 2026 midterms coming up. It would probably require the governor, Mike Kehoe, to call a special session. And what they would be looking to do, what Republicans will be looking to do, is take what is a 6-2 map in the U.S. House of Representatives, 6 Republicans, 2 Democrats, potentially turn it into a 7-1 map. And why that matters in Kansas City is the district they are probably looking to flip to turn from a blue district to a red district is Emmanuel Cleaver's district. And so any redistricting efforts in the state of Missouri are going to be of particular interest to people in the Kansas City metro.
Dr. Harris, thank you. So, in the weeks and months ahead, what do you see happening in the state of Missouri?
Well, I think the first question is there going to be a special session? And as I said a second ago, it looks more and more like that is going to be the case. The second question, I think, is do Republicans have the political will to carry this out? If the Republican Party, they have super majorities in the Missouri House and the Missouri Senate. So if the GOP is united, they could do this. The redistricting process is up to it's handled like a law. So it's up to the legislature and the governor. And so if there's a unified Republican front, they could do this. There are some reasons you might not want to, though. The way redistricting, gerrymandering, drawing district lines to benefit your party, the way it works is you take the existing districts and you try to add enough of your party supporters to a district that is held by the opposing party. But to do that, you have to take voters out of uh, districts that are safely held by your party. So what would probably happen in Missouri is you try to redraw, so you're taking voters away from Sam Graves and Mark Alford's districts, and basically add those voters to Emmanuel Cleaver's districts. And so you try to take, 2 districts that are like 70% Republican and take some voters out of there and threaten Emmanuel Cleaver's district or create a Republican district there. The problem with that can be while you might be trying to make a 7-1 Republican map, depending on what happens in the midterms, you could actually create a 5-3 Democratic map because you're taking Mark Alford's seat, you're taking Sam Graves' seat, and making them less safe. And particularly at a time, we expect 2026 to be a pretty good year for Democrats. It's usually the midterms are a bad year for the president's party, and President Trump is a Republican. So, I think there are some questions. I think especially if you're somebody like a Mark Alford or a Sam Graves, and I'd love to hear their thoughts on this. But do you want to say, well, in trying to go 7-1 Republican, we'll potentially take some safe Republican seats and make them a little less safe? And so there are also some questions about, good governance, and do you want to be drawing crazy districts that have voters who are not really geographically in the same place? Um, and it's sort of also just from a good governance perspective, it distorts, the will of the voters. Missouri is definitely a red state, but Kamala Harris did get 40% of the vote. And so 40% Democratic, but 1 out of 8 seats in the House of Representatives is sort of a distortion of what the reality of the voter makeup is. So there are some questions here. I think that's there's kind of two questions. Will Kehoe call the special session, and then do Republicans have the unity to actually go through with this partisan redistricting?
Dr. Harris, thank you. I know some Missouri Democrats have raised concerns over representation. So, what message do you think that this sends to them?
Um, I think Democrats in the state of Missouri are on the record as saying that if Republicans are unified in this, there's not really a whole lot that they can do to stop it. But I think in general, and when we say gerrymandering, we're talking about drawing congressional district lines to get as many seats as you can for your own party and as few seats as possible for the other party. It's not something that is just a Democratic thing, just a Republican thing. In Missouri, it's Republicans doing it. In Texas, it's Republicans, but you can also look at a state like Illinois and say it's kind of tilted the other way. But in all of those cases, I would say gerrymandering has some really harmful effects for democracy, because what it does is it takes the democracy is supposed to be the voice of the people, and what gerrymandering does is it sort of distorts that voice, and it says, well, in Missouri it's a 60-40 Republican state, or maybe a little more, 65-35, but we're in representation, it'll be 7-1. Democrats will have, they have 35-40% of the voters, they'll have 12.5% of the seats that Missouri sends to the House of Representatives, and that's a bad thing. When we talk about democracy, people's trust in government, people's trust in institutions, if they feel like their vote doesn't matter, their voice isn't being heard, that's a bad thing. Whether it's Democrats that are doing it, whether it's Republicans that are doing it, gerrymandering has really harmful effects for democracy. And we also, you want congressional districts to have some sort of geographic nexus, right? Because there are issues that are important to Kansas City, and those are going to be different from the issues that are important in St. Louis or Springfield or Joplin, whatever. And if you start drawing crazy districts where there's not really they're not geographically compact, that can also be harmful when the people of a geographic place need help with things like economic concerns, natural disasters. So drawing crazy district lines can also be a bad thing from that perspective. And so overall, this sort of gerrymandering, it looks like what we might be headed for is sort of a tit for tat, where Republicans say we're going to gerrymander these states, and Democrats say, well, we're going to try to gerrymander these states. And all of that is not good for democracy.
Dr. Harris, thank you. Do you think that Missouri Republicans will be successful in their efforts if they do follow through?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's always tough when you talk about Missouri Republicans, because you've got there's been a real schism in the party as well, where you've got sort of the Freedom Caucus, you've got the far right, and then you've got some sort of more mainstream Republicans. And so if they are able to unify, yeah, there's not a lot that can stop them. And so I think the question is, do they have that party unity? If the governor calls a special session, they'll come through and say, we're drawing these district lines to make it 7 Republican seats in the U.S. House for Missouri. So really, it's a matter of, do Republicans have that unity? And when they were doing redistricting, normally redistricting is every 10 years after the census. And when this came up after the last census, Republicans, there was some talk about a 7-1 map. They decided not to do it. So I guess the question is, do they have the unity, the willpower to do it? What's the new variable this time? Well, it is in part that President Trump, who is, the leader of the Republican Party, seems to be pushing more heavily for this. And so that might tip the scales a little bit more than what we saw in previous redistricting efforts.
Dr. Harris, thank you. So, Kansas Cityans, they're seeing the headlines, they're seeing this extreme example of what is happening in Texas right now. What is your message to them if they have concerns or questions?
The big thing is we live in a democracy. You have elected officials, you have you have a representative in the state house, you have a representative in the state senate. So if you see an issue with this, if you or if you really want it, if you have an opinion on this, contact your elected officials. They're easier to contact than ever with social media and email and all that stuff. So if I think that's the best thing you can do as a citizen is, number one, inform yourself, and number two, contact those elected officials, speak out, talk to your neighbors, your friends. That's sort of the best thing we can do in a democracy is to make our voices heard.
Such a great message. Do you have any final thoughts or anything I haven't yet asked you?
No, I think like with every story in Missouri politics, the key is just stay tuned. I'm sure we will hear more about this in the days and weeks to come.
Dr. Harris, thank you so much for sitting down on the KCTV5 live desk to talk about the Missouri redistricting efforts. We really appreciate your time. Welcome back to the live desk. You just heard from Dr. Matt Harris. He is a political science professor from Park University. He sat down with me. This comes after this weekend over 50 Texas lawmakers fled the state. Texas Democrats are fighting against the redrawing of congressional maps, but President Trump, of course, is backing the Republicans in Texas as he is pushing for this to happen, and now it's raising questions for some Missouri Republicans. Some are also in favor of redistricting as they're attempting to get a Republican in, longtime Congressman Cleaver's long-held seat. So Dr. Matt Harris talked about how it would really take Republican unity to go from a 6-2 to a 7-1 ratio. And so next I want to take you to a sound from Mayor Quinton Lucas. He actually sat down with KCTV5 today, so let's see what he has to say.
Democrats can win here, common sense arguments can win here, and I think it will backfire if Republicans look to try to redraw the district, not just because it's a slap in the face to the people of Western Missouri, but also because, frankly, I think it would drive some energy for Democrats that hasn't existed in this state for some time.
Spoken to the state reps who represent the Kansas City area with what they need to do going to Jefferson City to try to stop this from happening?
Well, I try to be as supportive as possible. I did have the opportunity to catch up with one of our state senators the other day and a state representative. I know those who represent Kansas City and care about Kansas City will fight their level best to make sure that this doesn't come to fruition. That being said, this is an odd time in American politics where rules and standards don't matter. You don't do mid-decade redistricting, really. And I don't care if you're saying, well, they did it over there. My mom taught me that's not actually an excuse to do things that are wrong. It's wrong to cut out the voices of the people of Kansas City. And even if they try to, we'll find a way to make sure our voices are heard loud and clear.
That was our reporter Alex Love chatting with Mayor Quinton Lucas. Mayor Lucas says he thinks that redistricting could actually backfire on Republicans if it were to happen in the state of Missouri, and he also thinks that it is wrong. Now, it is important to note that a special session has not yet been set, but some Republican lawmakers do think it could happen in the future. As Dr. Matt Harris said in the earlier interview, this is something that we will just have to wait out and see, as nothing is yet set in stone. And in more news, the Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office has shared details on the funeral service for fallen Deputy Elijah Ming. I'm about to give you the latest updates on this here in just a second. here at KCTV5. We just received word this afternoon that a funeral time and place has been set for fallen Deputy Elijah Ming. Deputy Ming died after a suspect shot him. He was responding to a domestic violence-related call just last weekend in Kansas City, Kansas. Ming's funeral will be held on Monday, August 11th at 11 a.m. It'll be at Children's Mercy Park at One Sporting Way, Kansas City, Kansas. Now, the sheriff's office did say parking lots will be open to the public starting at 9 a.m. next Monday, and stadium gates will open at 10 a.m. A law enforcement procession will immediately follow the funeral service as well, and the processional route and burial information will be announced in the coming days. Now, if you are tuning into us on Facebook Live, we are going to go ahead and take it over just on YouTube and our KCTV5 Plus streaming app. And if you are on YouTube or KCTV5 Plus streaming, we will be right back after this short break. Thanks so much for tuning in. Welcome back to the live desk. I'm Katie Bird. Next up, Clay County leaders are using a brand new law to crack down on police chases. Our reporter Morgan Rydell took us there today. Go ahead and listen in now.
County files 76 cases now with higher punishments to try and avoid tragedies like Deputy Valentine's. In the last 11 months, that's one case every 4 days. The law makes it a felony to drive away from an officer trying to pull you over in the state of Missouri. If there's a chance of causing injury by doing so, the charge is up to at least a Class D felony. If someone is hurt or dies, a subject is facing Class A or B felonies, plus you could be spending 10 to 30 years behind bars. And now take a look at this. It's video of law enforcement officers in Clay County during one of these pursuits that ended with the driver getting 10 years behind bars thanks to Valentine's Law. Clay County prosecutor Zachary Thompson says they're glad to now have these tools to deal with these cases, but want people to know how serious it is.
It's far too many. And when someone makes the decision to flee a law enforcement officer in a vehicle at a high speed, they not only endanger innocent members of our community, the law enforcement officers, and themselves.
Prosecutor Thompson says of these 76 cases, 5 of them have been sentenced. 4 of those 5 all involved crashes. Reporting in Liberty, Morgan Rydell, KCTV5 News.
If you want to learn more about Valentine's Law, be sure to check out this story on the KCTV5 News app. Next up, Blue Ridge Boulevard is getting a makeover. This is a part of the city of Grandview's largest ever infrastructure project. Our morning reporter Nathan Brennan took us behind the scenes. Go ahead and listen in now.
If you're driving along Blue Ridge Boulevard near 3rd Street, you'll notice that there aren't any sidewalks on either side of the road. Thanks to the largest infrastructure project in Grandview's history, that will soon change.
Progress is uncomfortable. However, the end result is much more important. So yes,
it's a project years in the making. A complete overhaul of Blue Ridge Boulevard between I-49 and Prospect.
Going back and forth to Truman Marketplace, or going to Dollar General, a dollar store, at least they can traverse safely by walking back and forth.
Drivers will notice plenty of improvements, like resurfacing and extending 2 lanes in both directions. But maybe the most significant change will be for families who aren't behind the wheel. Our dash cam shows miles of pavement without anywhere to walk safely, which is now a main priority on the local and federal level.
A sidewalk is a method of transportation for pedestrians, and in Grandview, it's a big deal.
1, 2, 3.
The total cost of the project is $24 million, coming from a number of different funds. But it was ultimately Grandview voters who are making it happen.
The citizens of Grandview passed a bond package back in 2022 for funding for this project as well. So Blue Ridge has been a major undertaking, and we're pretty excited.
The entire project will be completed in 3 phases. As you can see, phase 1 will be right here off of 3rd Street and Blue Ridge Boulevard. The goal is to have the entire project completed by summer of 2027. In Grandview, Nathan Brennan, KCTV5 News.
And in more headlines, a Parkville man was charged with an infant's death. Our reporter Gianni Navarro was out in Platte County today with the latest. I'm going to go ahead and give you a rundown. Go ahead and take a look at your screen. This is 21-year-old Adrian Horton of Parkville, and according to court documents, he has been charged with child endangerment resulting in a child's death. This is a first-degree felony that could result in a life sentence. Now, according to a probable cause statement filed by the KCPD, it revealed that in October, just last fall, law enforcement officials were called to Children's Mercy with reports that a child had possibly been abused. Now, when first responders arrived to Children's Mercy, they said that they were told an infant had been brought in with life-threatening injuries. The infant had sustained a brain bleed, multiple rib fractures, and possible internal decapitation. The child was pronounced deceased by medical staff in early November. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read a statement from Children's Mercy Hospital. It says that based on the current available information, the totality of his injuries in the absence of a significant accidental trauma history, it is most consistent with child physical abuse, including abusive head trauma. The injuries the child had sustained are caused by violent trauma to the head, including acceleration and deceleration forces, which may or may not include shaking. Now, a hearing has yet to be scheduled in the case of the infant's death. However, Adrian L. Horton is expected to appear in court next month at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd, for a previous rape charge. Now, our reporter Gianni Navarro spoke with Eric Zan, the Platte County prosecuting attorney. Listen in to what he had to say.
Now that the charges are filed, he obviously has the right to an attorney. He's got the right to determine whether or not he wants to have a jury trial. Our goal in this case is to bring justice to this little baby and for this mother and family. It's a really, really tragic set of circumstances, and again, we allege that it happened at the hands of this man.
And in more news, 2 Metro football coaches are put on a suspension after overworking their athletes. I'm going to go ahead and take a break, but make sure to stay tuned in for that reporting right after this short break.
Lee Summit North football finished the 2024 season with an 11-1 record and an appearance in the Class 6 quarterfinals. They have high expectations for 2025, but now they'll be beginning their season without their head coach. The Missouri State High School Activities Association bylaws allow 20 practices over the summer. Principal Dr. Tim Collins sent out this letter to families on Friday. Collins says his staff discovered the team exceeded that number and coaches were working with players during a summertime dead period. Second-year head coach Jason Rogers will now be sidelined for the first 3 games of the season, along with assistant coach Jalon Whitaker. The school named defensive coordinator Deron Washington interim head coach. The school itself handed down those suspensions, which Misha has accepted. Sports Radio 810 host Bethany Bowman, who has covered local high school sports for 7 years, says a powerhouse team like Lee Summit North is certainly capable of getting through a situation like this.
Kind of that next man up mentality that they talk about with players. If a player is to go down or have a suspension, I think the coaches have to feel the same way.
The Broncos will be put to the test the 29th of this month as they kick off the season against Raymore Peculiar.
Could go either way, but ultimately I think that, discipline-wise and the way that Coach Rogers has that team kind of cultured and ready to play, I think they'll probably make a positive spin out of it.
In Lee Summit, Katie Marr, KCTV 5 Sports.
Next up, a truck driver is dead after a collision on K7 highway. This morning, the crash was reported around 8:45 a.m. in Olathe. Kansas Highway Patrol confirms that an asphalt truck driver swerved out of his lane, hitting a trailer behind a pickup truck, lost control, and rolled into a ditch, flipping its contents onto the K7 highway. Now, the asphalt driver killed on scene has been identified as 68-year-old Leslie L. Kendig of Osawatomie, Kansas. And in more news, a recall election has been set for Jackson County. Our reporter Gabby Luma brings us more now.
Jackson County taxpayers will now vote on what this group has fought for years for, potentially ousting Frank White from office, and many believe they'll be successful.
I would be so incredibly shocked. I mean, I don't see that even being a possibility.
The troubled county executive has faced backlash for a slew of issues, most namely unfair property tax assessments and a failed stadium tax vote. Though White vehemently denies the recall being about property tax assessments, county officials say differently.
I think that, unfortunately, the county executive is tone deaf of the issue at hand. This has nothing to do about stadiums. Stadiums were decided in April of last year. It failed.
And I spoke with White's staff earlier this morning requesting an on-camera interview, which they denied. His information officer telling me they only found out about the ruling through media requests this morning. He did provide a statement saying in part, quote, "I believe the people of Jackson County deserve something real in return for $1 billion investment, jobs, community benefits, transparency, and respect." And many groups of Jackson County residents have called for that transparency, but they say they've yet to see it from White. In regards to White appealing the ruling to further delay the election,
it's going to be hard to appeal it. It's just a quality order. So if he tries to appeal, he certainly has that right. I don't think he'll be successful.
It's election day eve, and thousands of Missouri and Kansas voters will head to the polls tomorrow to cast their ballots on issues ranging from mayor to commissioners to sheriff and even tax levies. Now, our Nigel Hood hit the polls a day early as Wyandotte County saw a record turnout. Listen into what one voter had to say.
I think getting a head start is convenient, and we always like to come to the election office, and voting is very, very important for our local elections.
Most of the calls we're getting is about how many candidates are for mayor. We're not used to that here in Wyandotte County. There's quite a few compared to normal, but there have been a lot of questions and focus towards the mayor's race.
Now, if you are registered to vote and planning to show up to the polls, but you may not exactly know what's on your ballot, that is okay. I'm going to go ahead and direct you to this story on the KCTV5 news app and website. So this is an election guide for both voters on the Missouri and Kansas side. Now, polling locations in Missouri will open at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and remain open until 7 p.m. tomorrow night. And make sure to tune in to KCTV5 Plus tomorrow for extended election coverage. Now, Missouri voters can also view sample ballots at the Secretary of State's voter information lookup, and Kansas voters can view their sample ballot information on their Secretary of State's voter view website. Now, in order to obtain a ballot, Missouri and Kansas voters must provide identification, and you can see on this link, it shows exactly what you'll need to bring in along with the races you will be voting on. Now, we are going to go ahead and take a break, but after that, I'm going to be giving you some more national headlines, so make sure to stay tuned. Welcome back to the KCTV5 Live Desk. I'm Katie Bird. Go ahead and take a look at your screen. It was a very scary scene in New Jersey this morning as passengers evacuated a train after a fire. It broke out underneath a PATH train at the Newport station in New Jersey. This is in the northern part of the state. This train quickly filled with smoke as passengers moved to get out as fast as they could. This video was taken from a viewer on their cell phone. You can see people rushing to the exit now as passengers moved out. Paramedics treated 13 people at the scene for smoke inhalation. Several did need to go to the hospital, and it's still unclear what sparked the fire. This incident disrupted train service for some time, but it's important to note trains are once again moving throughout the area. Now, next up, with your next national headline, animal surrenders have spiked recently, and it's partially due to high vet bills. In today's Consumer Watch, Jen Sullivan has tips on lowering your pet care costs. Go ahead and take a listen in now.
Manhattan, crates line the hallways as the shelter is overcrowded with animals who desperately need a home.
We'd never turn away an animal.
Katie Hansen, the shelter's director of marketing and communication, says they're able to handle about 500 animals, but right now they have over 1,000. Some are able to stay with foster families.
It's been really tough.
She says shelters in the area have been inundated with animals as pet owners say they simply can't afford their pets.
This is really an affordability crisis.
The overcrowding is a crisis happening at shelters around the country, many posting about it on social media, hoping to help animals find a forever home. The high cost of vet bills is also burdening pet owners. The American Veterinary Medical Association says the rising cost of medical supplies, utilities, and pharmaceuticals is causing vets to charge more. But there are things pet owners can do to lower care costs.
If you start them on pet health insurance when they're young and you carry it through their life, that pet health insurance will help you if a catastrophic event happens.
Dr. Michael Bailey says car accidents and swallowing something they shouldn't have eaten are two of the biggest reasons for vet emergency visits. He says make sure your dog is always harnessed in the car, and keeping up with vaccines and preventative medication like heartworm can help their health in the long run.
Once they get it, it can not only be long and expensive, but it can shorten their life.
Ask your vet about payment options, and there are financial assistance programs out there. You can find information about it on the AVMA's website. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
This is video out of Southern California as wildfire has prompted evacuation warnings in the state. The Gifford fire in San Luis and Santa Barbara counties covers more than 65,000 areas. Now, according to California Fire, it was 3% contained as of this afternoon. Now, officials say more than 450 structures are threatened by this wildfire, and the Gifford fire started as a series of small fires that broke out Friday afternoon along Highway 166, and it is not clear what started the fire, and that is currently under investigation. Thank you so much for tuning in to the KCTV5 Plus streaming desk, and make sure to tune back in tomorrow for extended coverage on elections in both Kansas and Missouri. Thanks so much for joining us.